Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. If you're into stories that'll mess with your head, hit that subscribe button and drop a like. Comment below where you're watching from and what you think about this one. Now let's get into it. What happens when the afterlife runs on paperwork? When heaven and hell aren't about virtue or sin, but about who has the right documents? I found out the hard way, and now they're hunting me for it. I'm writing this from inside a collapsed transit station somewhere between the third and fourth circles. The air smells like burnt copper and forgotten promises. My hands won't stop shaking, and it's not from the cold. It's from knowing that every second I stay still, they get closer. 3 days ago, I owned a shop. A legitimate business, if you can call anything legitimate when it operates in the cracks between divine law and cosmic bureaucracy. Now I own nothing except the bag pressed against my chest, filled with documents that could unravel kingdoms both above and below. Let me back up. My name is Vincent Marrow, and for the past 11 years I've sold contracts. Not the kind you sign for a mortgage or a cell phone plan. The kind that change where you stand in the eternal hierarchy. The kind that turn nobodies into somebodies, even after death. The shop sat on Ashland Avenue in Chicago, wedged between a dry cleaner and a bail bonds office. From the outside, it looked like a notary public's office. Frosted glass. Brass nameplate. The kind of place you'd walk past without a second glance. Inside, the walls were lined with filing cabinets that stretched higher than they should, given the building's exterior dimensions. Each drawer contained documents that technically shouldn't exist. Elevation certificates, hierarchical reclassifications, provisional ascension permits, transfer of essence authorizations, all stamped, all sealed, all recognized by the systems that govern existence itself. Most people believe the afterlife is simple. You live, you die, you go somewhere based on what you did. Heaven for the good, hell for the bad, maybe something in between if you're lucky. That's the story they sell. The truth is messier. The truth is that the afterlife runs on infrastructure, hierarchies, roles, titles. And like any system built by conscious beings, it has loopholes, exploits, forgotten clauses written in languages that predate human civilization. I didn't discover this system. I inherited access to it. My father was a clerk in one of the lower administrative offices of what most people would call purgatory. He spent 200 years filing paperwork for souls in transit, sorting, stamping, verifying. He learned every regulation, every exception, every contradiction buried in the codes. When he finally earned his rest, he left me his notes. Thousands of pages documenting the gaps, the places where the system said one thing but enforced another, the forms that could be duplicated, the seals that could be reproduced. At first I thought it was useless, a dead man's obsession with cosmic red tape. Then I got my first client. Her name was Rebecca Ortiz. She found me because her daughter told her to. Her daughter had been dead for 6 years. Rebecca walked into my shop on a Tuesday morning in October, mid-50s, gray streaks in her black hair, wearing a jacket 2 sizes too big. Her hands clutched a purse like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. She didn't look at me when she spoke. "Teresa says you can help." I'd heard variations of this before. Dreams, visions, voices during meditation. The barrier between the living and dead isn't as solid as people think. Sometimes it's thin enough for whispers to slip through. "Who's Teresa?" I asked, though I already knew. "My daughter. She's been talking to me. At night. In my head." Rebecca's voice cracked. "She says she's stuck. Says she can't move forward. Says there's a place she needs to be, but they won't let her in because she doesn't have the right classification." I gestured for her to sit. The chair across from my desk was old leather, worn smooth by countless people carrying impossible grief. "Tell me what she said." "Exactly." Rebecca pulled out a notebook. Her handwriting covered the pages in frantic loops. She'd been documenting the conversations for months. Teresa had died in a car accident. Quick, painless. She'd been a good person by any reasonable measure. Worked at an animal shelter. Volunteered at soup kitchens. Died with no debts, no enemies. No unfinished cruelty. She should have gone somewhere decent. Instead, she ended up in the outer registry, a holding pattern for souls whose paperwork got misclassified during processing. Not hell, not heaven, just bureaucratic limbo. She'd been there for 6 years, filing appeals that went nowhere, waiting for a tribunal that never convened. The system had simply forgotten her. "Can you help?" Rebecca's eyes finally met mine. They were red-rimmed and desperate. I could. That was the problem. I opened one of the filing cabinets and pulled out a blank form. Cream-colored paper, edges slightly yellow with age. At the top, in script so precise it looked mechanical, Certificate of Hierarchical Reassessment. "This document," I said slowly, "reclassifies an entity's status within the post-mortem administrative framework. If properly executed and sealed, the system recognizes it as legitimate. Your daughter would be transferred out of the outer registry and placed into a standard ascension queue." "How long would that take?" 3 months, maybe less. Rebecca's hands trembled as she reached for the paper. "What do you need from me?" "Payment." The word hung in the air between us. "How much?" "Not money," I said. "The currency that matters in these transactions is different. I need something of value, something with weight, an heirloom with emotional significance, a talent you'll never use again, a memory you're willing to lose permanently." Her face went pale. "A memory? Or something equivalent. The system doesn't accept cash. It accepts sacrifice. Proof that you're willing to pay a real cost for this intervention." She sat in silence for a long time. Outside, traffic hummed past. A siren wailed in the distance. Normal world sounds. Normal world problems. Finally, she spoke. "I have a ring. My grandmother's. Teresa loved it. I was supposed to give it to her on her wedding day." "That will work." Rebecca slipped the ring off her finger. Gold band. Small emerald. Warm from her skin. She placed it on the desk between us. I took the certificate and began filling in the details. Teresa Maria Ortiz. Date of death. Current classification. New classification. I used a fountain pen with ink that shimmered faintly in the overhead light. Not magic, not really. Just old. Old enough that the system remembered when it was made. When I finished, I pressed my seal into red wax at the bottom. The seal itself was my father's gift. Bronze, heavy, engraved with symbols that predated written language. The wax cooled instantly. "It's done," I said, sliding the certificate across the desk. "This needs to be burned. The smoke carries the information into the administrative channels. Your daughter will feel the change within 48 hours. Rebecca took the document with shaking hands. "Will she know it was me?" "She'll know someone helped. Whether she knows it was you specifically depends on what you tell her." She stood to leave, then paused at the door. "Is this legal? In the cosmic sense?" I smiled without humor. "Legal is complicated. The document is valid. The system will honor it. Whether it should exist is a different question." She left without another word. 3 weeks later, I received a letter. No return address. Just 2 words in Teresa's handwriting. "Thank you." That was 7 years ago. Since then, I've processed hundreds of transactions. Fathers buying demonic promotions for sons stuck in hell's lower echelons. Wives purchasing angelic credentials for husbands trapped in mid-tier positions in heaven. Siblings, lovers, friends, all trying to improve the eternal circumstances of people they'd lost. The living pay, the dead benefit. I facilitate, and the system somehow accepts it all. Because the system isn't perfect. It's old, built on frameworks that contradict themselves, maintained by beings who've held their position so long they've stopped questioning the rules they enforce. I exploited that, every day, every transaction, until I made a mistake. It started with a client named Victor Hammond. He came in on a Thursday afternoon 3 months ago. Expensive suit, polished shoes, the kind of man who expected doors to open before he reached them. "I need an upgrade," he said without preamble. "For whom?" For me, I set down my pen. You're alive. Obviously. I don't sell contracts for the living. You sell contracts that affect the dead. I'm planning ahead. He placed a briefcase on my desk. I want to ensure that when I die, I bypass the usual processing. I want guaranteed entry into the upper administrative levels. I want a position waiting for me. That's not how this works. Everything works if you pay enough. He opened the briefcase. Inside, stacks of bills. But underneath, something else. A smaller case containing vials of liquid that glowed faintly amber. Distilled essence, he said. Extracted from willing donors. Purchased legally through licensed brokers. Enough value here to buy a palace in any realm you choose. I should have refused, should have thrown him out. But I looked at those vials and thought about what they represented. Years of saved resources. Decades of work. The kind of payment that would set me up permanently. I took the job. It took me 2 weeks to forge the documents. Pre-authorized ascension clearance. Reserved position in celestial administration. Guaranteed bypass of standard evaluation. I used older seals. Rarer inks. I backdated the paperwork to make it look like it had been processed centuries ago, just recently rediscovered. It was my best work. It was also my biggest mistake. Because Victor Hammond wasn't just a client. He was a test. 2 days after I delivered his contracts, they came. I was closing the shop for the night when I felt it. A pressure change in the air. The smell of ozone and burning parchment. The lights flickered, then stabilized into a cold white glow that had no natural source. 5 figures materialized in front of my desk. They wore forms that hurt to look at directly. Humanoid, but wrong in ways that made my eyes water. Armor made of condensed light. Wings that weren't quite wings. Faces that shifted between expressions without moving. Enforcers from the Celestial Compliance Division. The one in front spoke with a voice that resonated in my chest. Vincent Marrow, you are charged with fraudulent manipulation of sacred administrative protocols, unauthorized creation of hierarchical documentation, distribution of false credentials, corruption of eternal systems. I'd prepared for this moment. Theoretically, I had escape routes, contingency contracts, documents that could buy me time. But standing there, facing beings whose existence predated human civilization, all my plans felt like drawings in sand. I want a lawyer, I said, because what else do you say when gods come to arrest you? You will receive evaluation. First, you will surrender all documents, seals, and implements used in your criminal enterprise. And if I refuse? The enforcer's form flickered. Refusal is confession. Confession accelerates sentencing. Sentencing is immediate. I reached slowly for the bag I kept under my desk. Inside, my father's seal. My most valuable documents. The records of every transaction I'd ever processed. Evidence that would condemn me completely. I handed it over. The enforcer took the bag, and for just a moment our eyes met. In that instant, I saw something I didn't expect. Recognition, not of me, of the contents. The enforcer knew what was in that bag. Knew because they'd seen documents like it before. Maybe had even used them. That split second of understanding saved my life. Because while they were processing that moment of recognition, I triggered the contingency I'd sewn into the lining of the bag itself. A compressed forgery. A flash paper certificate of temporary administrative immunity. It activated on contact with the enforcer's touch. The system recognized it instantly. For exactly 7 seconds, I was technically untouchable. 7 seconds, I used them. I grabbed the real bag, hidden in a different drawer, and ran straight through the wall behind my desk. Not metaphorically. The wall was real. But I'd filed paperwork years ago, reclassifying it as a permeable boundary for authorized personnel. The system believed it. The wall let me pass. I heard shouting behind me, the sound of reality bending as they pursued. But I was already gone, running through passages that shouldn't exist, carrying everything I'd built and everything that would destroy me. That was 3 days ago. Now I'm here, In this collapsed station, listening to footsteps echo in the tunnels above. They're getting closer. And I'm running out of documents to save me. The footsteps stopped. That's worse than hearing them. When they're moving, I know where they are. When they stop, it means they're listening, waiting for me to breathe too loud, to shift my weight, to make any sound that gives away my position. I press myself deeper into the alcove where I've been hiding. The space smells like rust and stagnant water. My shoulder scrapes against concrete that crumbles at the touch. Somewhere in the darkness, water drips with metronomic precision. Each drop feels like a countdown. Above me, through the collapsed ceiling, I can see fragments of what used to be a maintenance tunnel. The station I'm hiding in was part of the old Chicago Transit Authority infrastructure, abandoned in the 70s, forgotten by the living world, but not by everything. The spaces between exist everywhere, cracks in reality where the rules get thin, places that belong to multiple jurisdictions at once, so none of them maintain proper oversight. My father's notes were of them. He'd mapped dozens across the city during his time as a clerk. Neutral ground, contested territory, administrative no man's land. Perfect for someone like me. I pull the bag closer and risk opening it just enough to check the contents by touch. The seal is still there. 3 dozen certificates, each one representing a different escape route. Identity shifts, jurisdictional transfers, emergency appeals to obscure tribunals. And underneath everything, the ledger. My father's original notes, plus my own additions. 11 years of transactions. Names. Dates. Payments received. Documents issued. Every contract I ever forged. Every soul I ever helped. Every loophole I ever exploited. But also every client who ever walked through my door. Including the ones who shouldn't have needed my services. Including the ones who already held positions in the celestial hierarchy. That's what they really want. Not justice. Not punishment for my crimes. They want this ledger destroyed. A sound breaks the silence. Not footsteps. Something worse. A low hum that makes my teeth ache. The air pressure drops. My ears pop. The temperature plummets so fast I can see my breath. They're scanning. I fumble in the bag for a specific document. My fingers find it by texture alone. Thicker paper, rougher edges. A temporary obscuration certificate. It won't hide me completely, but it might blur me enough to slip past their sweep. I press my thumb against the seal at the bottom. It activates with a sensation like static electricity crawling across my skin. For 30 seconds, maybe 40, I'm classified as background noise in the cosmic spectrum. Not invisible, just uninteresting. The humming intensifies. Passes over me, moves on. I don't move. Don't breathe. Count to 60 in my head before allowing myself to exhale. They're still hunting. They just don't know exactly where. I need to move. Staying in one place is suicide. But moving means exposure. Every step is a risk. Every decision matters. I think about Rebecca Ortiz. About the relief in her voice when she called 3 months after our transaction to tell me Teresa had been reassigned. About how she cried on the phone, thanking me for giving her daughter a chance at something better. That's what I told myself I was doing. Helping people. Giving them hope when the system had abandoned them. But Victor Hammond wasn't someone who needed hope. He was someone who wanted insurance. Wanted to buy his way past judgment before he'd even earned it. And I sold it to him anyway. The payment was too good, the challenge too interesting. I convinced myself it was just another transaction. I was an idiot. I wait another 5 minutes, then slowly work my way out of the alcove. The station platform stretches ahead of me, barely visible in the dim light filtering through cracks in the ceiling. Train tracks disappear into tunnels on either side. Ancient graffiti covers the walls. Tags from decades ago, left by people who've long since grown old or died. I choose the North Tunnel. It leads toward the river, toward territories that might offer better hiding spots. I move carefully, testing each step before committing my weight. The tracks are treacherous, broken concrete, exposed rebar, puddles of water that could be an inch deep or 3 feet. 20 yards in, I hear voices. Not human voices. These sound like wind passing through an instrument. Melodic but wrong. Beautiful in a way that makes your skin crawl. I freeze. The voices are coming from ahead, from the tunnel I just chose. Behind me, the humming starts again. I'm boxed in. Think. I pull out another document. Certificate of Emergency Transit. It's a gamble. This one works by reclassifying me as administrative personnel on urgent business. If it works, both groups might let me pass, assuming I'm authorized to be here. If it doesn't work, it'll light me up like a flare. No choice. I activate it. The effect is immediate. My skin tingles. The air around me shimmers faintly. I'm marked now, tagged with an identifier that screams, "Official business." I start walking toward the voices. They emerge from the darkness ahead. 3 of them. Different from the enforcers who raided my shop. These wear forms that look almost human until you see the edges where they blur, where reality can't quite decide what shape they should hold. Archivists, record keepers from the Celestial Administrative Corps. The one in front tilts its head. Identify yourself. I keep my voice steady. Vincent Marrow, Emergency Transit Authority, classified. There is no active emergency transit in this sector. Check your updates. Authorization came through 20 minutes ago. It's a bluff, a complete fabrication. But bureaucracies are slow. Information takes time to propagate through the system. There's always a gap between when something happens and when everyone knows about it. The archivist form flickers. It's checking. Actually, checking. My heart hammers in my chest. Authorization not found, it says finally. I'm dead. But then it adds, however, processing delays are common. Proceed with caution. Report to your supervisor immediately upon completion of transit. It steps aside. I walk past them, expecting at any second to feel a hand on my shoulder, to hear the command to stop, to have the illusion shatter, but they let me pass. I make it 50 yards before my knees nearly give out. I catch myself against the tunnel wall, breathing hard. The certificate burns itself out, leaving a faint smell of sulfur. That was too close. I keep moving. The tunnel slopes upward. The air gets fresher. After what feels like hours but is probably only 20 minutes, I see light ahead. Real light. Sunlight. I emerge in a storm drain near the river. The opening is hidden behind overgrown bushes. I crawl out, blinking against the brightness. The sky is overcast. Gray. Threatening rain. But after the darkness of the tunnels, it looks like paradise. I'm somewhere near Goose Island, industrial area, warehouses and abandoned factories. Not many people around. I need help. I need someone who knows this world. Someone who can help me understand what I'm really up against. There's only one person I can think of. Diane Kushner. She was a client 2 years ago. Her brother had ended up in one of hell's administrative positions. Not a torturer, not a demon, just a clerk. Endless paperwork, eternal bureaucracy. She'd wanted him promoted to something with meaning, a role that mattered. I'd sold her a certificate of departmental transfer. Her brother moved from the records division to the appeals office. A lateral move technically, but one that let him actually help souls instead of just filing their suffering. The payment she'd offered was unusual. Information. Diane had worked as a researcher for the University of Chicago. She'd spent years studying historical records of mystical practices. She knew things, saw patterns, made connections. When she'd paid me, she'd included a warning. You're going to get caught eventually, she'd said. When you do, don't go to the authorities, don't try to appeal. Just run, and if you need somewhere to hide, come find me. At the time, I thought she was being paranoid. Now I'm hoping she was being prophetic. I know where she lives, or lived 2 years ago. An apartment in Pilsen, above a Mexican restaurant. If she's still there, if she remembers, if she's willing to help, a lot of ifs. I start walking, keep my head down, Try to look like just another person going about their day. The bag is conspicuous, but I can't abandon it. Everything I am is in this bag. The walk takes 40 minutes. My clothes are filthy from the tunnel. I smell like standing water and rust. People give me a wide berth. The restaurant is still there. La Cocina de Mama. The smell of grilled meat and fresh tortillas makes my stomach clench. I haven't eaten in 2 days. I take the side stairs up to the second floor. 3 apartments. Diane's was the middle one. I knock. Wait. Knock again. The door opens a crack. A chain lock holds it. One eye peers out at me. Jesus Christ, Diane says. You look like hell. Can I come in? She studies me for a long moment, then closes the door. I hear the chain slide. The door opens fully. Quickly. I step inside. The apartment is exactly as I remember. Books everywhere. Stacks on tables, shelves covering every wall, piles on the floor, papers scattered across every surface. The organized chaos of someone whose brain works too fast for conventional filing systems. Diane locks the door behind me. She's changed her hair since I last saw her. Shorter, streaked with purple. She's wearing an oversized sweater and jeans with holes in the knees. They came for you, she says. It's not a question. 2 days ago. How bad? 5 enforcers. Full tribunal authorization. They're not interested in a trial. She nods slowly. You ran instead of surrendering. Smart. They would have erased you before you ever saw the inside of a courtroom. How do you know that? Because they've done it before. You're not the first person to exploit the system, Vincent. You're just the latest. She moves to one of the bookcases and pulls out a folder stuffed with papers. After you helped my brother, I started researching, looking into the history of cosmic bureaucracy, trying to understand how it all worked. She spreads the papers across the coffee table. They're copies of ancient documents, some in languages I don't recognize, others in familiar scripts but using terminology that doesn't quite make sense. The system is old, she continues. Older than Christianity. Older than any organized religion you've heard of. It predates human civilization. And like anything that old, it's full of patches and workarounds and forgotten protocols. I know that. That's how I built my business. Right, but what you didn't know, what I didn't know until I started digging, is that the corruption goes all the way to the top. The enforcers, the administrators, the angels themselves, they've all used the same exploits you were using. The only difference is they had the authority to make it legal after the fact. I stare at the documents. That's why they want me dead. That's why they want you silent. You're proof that the system is broken, that righteousness and judgment are just theater, that everything runs on paperwork and who has access to the right forms. She taps one document in particular. This is a promotion certificate from the Third Reformation. It elevated an administrator to archangel status. Complete fabrication. But it was accepted because the right people validated it. Who validated it? Other archangels who'd been promoted the same way. It's a closed loop. They protect each other by maintaining the fiction that it's all legitimate. The implications hit me like a physical blow. So everyone at the top, not everyone, but enough, the ones who matter, the ones with real power. Diane sits down across from me. You are never going to get a fair trial, Vincent, because a trial would mean examining your methods, and examining your methods would reveal that they're the same ones the celestial hierarchy has been using for millennia. Then what do? I can't run forever. No. But you can negotiate. With what? She points at the bag. With what you know, with who you've helped, with the evidence you've collected. Her eyes are sharp, calculating. You have a ledger, don't you? Records of every transaction? I nod slowly. Then you have leverage, names, dates, proof. The question is whether you're willing to use it. I think about the enforcers who came to my shop, about the recognition I saw in their eyes, about how quickly they moved to silence me instead of bringing me in for evaluation. They're afraid, not of my crimes, of exposure. If I threaten to release the ledger, they'll kill you immediately. But if you arrange for it to be released automatically unless specific conditions are met, she smiles grimly, then you become too dangerous to eliminate quietly. A dead man's switch. Exactly. You need insurance. Proof that killing you would be worse than negotiating with you. It's risky, it's probably insane, but it's the only plan I've got. How would I set that up? Diane pulls out her phone. I know someone, another researcher. He studies digital afterlife systems, the way information propagates through mystical networks. If anyone can help you create a failsafe, it's him. Can you trust him? Can you trust me? Fair point. She makes the call, speaks quietly, listens, nods. He'll meet us, she says after hanging up, but not here. Too exposed. There's a place in Bridgeport, abandoned church. He uses it as a lab. When? Tonight. Midnight. I check the window. The sky is darker now, evening approaching. That gives them hours to find me. Then we'll have to make sure they don't. She stands and walks to a closet, pulls out a jacket. You need different clothes, different appearance, and you need to look like you belong here, not like you just crawled out of a sewer. She's right. I've been running on instinct, not strategy. Time to start thinking ahead. Diane tosses me the jacket. Shower first. You smell like decay. 20 minutes later, I'm clean and wearing borrowed clothes, black jeans, gray hoodie. Not my style, but unremarkable. Forgettable. Diane hands me a sandwich. I devour it without tasting it. My body needs fuel. We have 6 hours, she says. Use them, rest, prepare. At midnight we move. I sink into her couch. The bag stays on my lap. I can't let it go. Can't trust it anywhere but with me. Why are you helping me? I ask. She settles into a chair across from me. Because my brother mattered. The work you did for him mattered. And because someone needs to prove that the system is rotten. She pauses. Also because I've been looking for a reason to burn it all down. You just gave me one. I don't know if that's comforting or terrifying. Outside, darkness falls. Somewhere in the city, enforcers are searching. Archivists are updating their records. The machinery of divine justice is grinding toward me. But for the first time since this started, I'm not just running. I'm preparing to fight back. The hours crawl by. Diane works at her desk, cross-referencing documents, making notes in margins. I try to rest, but my mind won't shut down. Every creak of the building makes me tense. Every siren in the distance sounds like pursuit. Around 9, Diane orders food, Thai takeout. We eat in silence, the weight of what's coming pressing down on both of us. Tell me about your brother, I say finally. After the transfer, did it work? Her expression softens slightly. Yeah, it worked. He contacts me every few months, through dreams mostly. Says he's actually making a difference now, helping souls file proper appeals, getting cases reviewed that would have been ignored forever. She pushes rice around on her plate. He told me about some of the others, though. The ones in his old department. They've been doing the same meaningless tasks for centuries. Some of them don't even remember their names anymore. Just employee numbers. The system grinds people down even in the afterlife. Especially in the afterlife. At least here, you die eventually. There, if you're stuck in the wrong place. She doesn't finish the sentence. I think about all the people I helped. The ones who came to me desperate, willing to pay anything to improve the circumstances of someone they loved. Did I really help them? Or did I just profit from their grief? Do you regret it? Diane asks, reading my expression. The business? I don't know. I told myself I was helping people, that I was fixing the system's failures. But guys like Victor Hammond, they weren't victims of the system. They were trying to game it, and I helped them anyway. For the money. For the money, I admit. And because I could. Because it was interesting. Because part of me enjoyed knowing I could manipulate something that was supposed to be absolute. Diane nods. At least you're honest about it. That's more than most people manage. At 10:30, she stands and starts gathering equipment. A laptop, external hard drives, cables, a metal case that looks like it belongs in a spy movie. What's all that? I ask. Tools for the failsafe. We'll need to encode the ledger data in multiple formats, create redundant copies across different networks, physical and digital, mystical and technological. She glances at me. You understand what you're asking, right? Once we do this, there's no going back. You'll be declaring war on the entire celestial bureaucracy. They already declared war on me. I'm just evening the odds. Maybe. Or maybe you're ensuring they have no choice but to destroy you completely. She zips up a backpack. I'm saying this because I want you to understand the stakes. This isn't a negotiation tactic. This is mutually assured destruction. You're threatening to burn down the whole system. Good. Maybe it needs to burn. She studies me for a long moment. You've changed. 3 days ago you would have tried to negotiate, to find a compromise. Now you sound like someone who's got nothing left to lose. She's right. 3 days ago, I had a shop, a life, a comfortable existence built on moral ambiguity. Now I have a bag full of documents and a death sentence hanging over my head. What's left to lose? We should go, I say. Diane nods. Stay close. Stay quiet. The church is in a rough neighborhood. We don't need mundane problems on top of our cosmic ones. We leave through the back entrance. The alley behind the building is dark and narrow. Dumpsters overflow with garbage. The smell of rotting food mingles with exhaust fumes from the street. Diane leads me through a maze of back streets. She knows this city. Not just the surface level, but the hidden paths. The places where reality gets thin. We pass through an empty lot where an abandoned factory looms like a skeleton against the night sky, cut through a playground where the swings move in the windless air. They're close, Diane whispers. Can you feel it? I can. A pressure in the air, like standing too close to high-voltage power lines. The hairs on my arms stand up. How close? Close enough to sense you, not close enough to pinpoint. Keep moving. We emerge onto a residential street. Houses dark. Cars parked along the curb. Normal world. Normal lives. People inside sleeping, watching TV, arguing about bills. Completely unaware that other worlds exist right alongside theirs. 2 blocks down, I see it. The church, old brick building, probably built in the 20s, boarded windows. A sign out front so faded I can't read what it used to say. Weeds grow through cracks in the front steps. Around back, Diane says. We circle the building. The rear entrance is hidden behind overgrown bushes. Diane produces a key and unlocks a door that looks like it hasn't been opened in decades. It swings inward silently. Recently oiled hinges. Inside, the church is gutted. Pews removed. Walls stripped to bare brick. But the space isn't empty. Equipment fills the nave. Servers humming quietly. Monitors glowing in the darkness. Cables running everywhere like mechanical veins. A figure emerges from behind a bank of computers. Tall, thin, late 30s maybe, wearing a t-shirt with faded band logo and jeans covered in pockets. Diane, he says. His voice is soft, almost gentle. You brought trouble. Trevor, this is Vincent. Vincent, Trevor Rhodes. He's going to save your life. Probably. Trevor doesn't offer to shake hands, just studies me with eyes that seem to see more than they should. You're the contract dealer. The one they're hunting. News travels fast. In certain circles. He gestures toward the equipment. Come, we don't have much time. They're tracking you. Not perfectly, but well enough. This building has protections, but they won't hold forever. I follow him deeper into the church. The setup is impressive. Multiple computers running programs I don't recognize. Strange symbols drawn on the floor in what looks like silver paint. Crystals placed at specific intervals around the room. Technology and mysticism, Trevor explains, noticing my confusion. The afterlife bureaucracy runs on both. They interface in ways most people don't understand. I've spent 15 years mapping the connections. Why? Because my wife is trapped in the system, misclassified, stuck in a holding loop. I've been trying to find a way to free her. He glances at me. Your father's notes would have been useful. But you never sold information, only interventions. The accusation stings because it's true. I could have shared what I knew, could have helped people like Trevor understand the system well enough to fix it themselves. But that would have been bad for business. I'm sorry, I say, and mean it. Trevor nods slightly. You're about to make up for it. The ledger. I need to see it. I pull the book from my bag, leather cover worn smooth by years of handling, pages filled with entries in my handwriting, names, dates, transactions, everything. Trevor takes it carefully, reverently, opens it and begins reading. His eyes move rapidly across the pages. After a few minutes, he makes a low sound in his throat. This is extraordinary. You've documented corruption at levels I didn't think existed. He looks up at me. Some of these names, if this information became public, that's the plan. Leverage. It'll start a war. Better than being erased quietly. Trevor sets the ledger on a scanning bed. I'll digitize everything, create encrypted copies, store them across multiple networks, both earthly and otherwise. I'll set up triggers. If you fail to check in at predetermined intervals, the data releases automatically, sent to every major archive, every tribunal, every authority that might care. Will it work? It'll make you too expensive to eliminate silently. Whether that saves you? He shrugs. Depends on how badly they want you dead versus how badly they want this kept secret. He begins the scanning process. Each page captured in high resolution. The machine hums steadily as it works. Diane stands watch near the door. I see her tense suddenly. They're here, she says quietly. Trevor doesn't look up from his work. How many? At least 3, maybe more. They're surrounding the building. The wards will hold for a few minutes, not long. His fingers fly across a keyboard. I need 10 minutes to finish the encoding and set up the distribution network. We don't have 10 minutes, I say, moving toward the window. I can see them now. Figures moving in the darkness outside. That same wrong quality to their forms. That same light that shouldn't exist. One of them looks directly at the window where I'm standing. Even through the boards, I feel its gaze. They know we're here, I say. Of course they know. They've known since you crossed into this neighborhood. Trevor's voice remains calm. But knowing and being able to act are different things. This church is on contested ground. Multiple jurisdictions claim authority here. They can't just breach without triggering a territorial dispute. Unless they decide the risk is worth it. Unless that. The pressure in the air intensifies. My ears pop again. The temperature drops so fast I can see my breath in thick clouds. They're testing the wards, Trevor says. Probing for weaknesses, hold on. He types something. The symbols on the floor begin to glow faintly. The temperature stabilizes. That bought us maybe 5 minutes, he says. I'm working as fast as I can. Outside, the figures move closer. I count 5. No, 6. They're coordinating, setting up a perimeter. Something impacts the wall with tremendous force. The whole building shakes. Dust falls from the ceiling. They're not testing anymore, Diane says. Another impact. Harder. A crack appears in the brick wall. 4 minutes, Trevor says, not looking up. His hands never stop moving. I pull documents from my bag. Emergency measures, last resorts, things I hoped I'd never need to use. A temporal displacement certificate. A jurisdictional challenge form. A notice of existential appeal. What are you doing? Diane asks. Buying time. I activate the temporal displacement certificate first. It's a gamble. The document creates a localized time dilation. Everything inside its radius moves slightly faster relative to the outside. It only works for a few minutes, but minutes might be enough. The effect takes hold. The sounds from outside become stretched, distorted. The impacts come slower. Clever, Trevor says. That's going to make them angry, though. Temporal manipulation without authorization. Add it to my list of violations. Another impact. The crack in the wall widens. I can see light through it now. That wrong, cold light they carry with them. 2 minutes, Trevor says. I ready the jurisdictional challenge. It's a legal maneuver. A formal objection to their authority to operate in this space. If filed properly, it triggers an automatic review process. They'd have to pause the pursuit until jurisdiction is determined. The problem is filing it requires formal submission to a recognized tribunal. And there's no tribunal here, unless I create one. I pull out a blank certificate. My hands shake as I write. Temporary tribunal authorization. I'm appointing myself as emergency arbitrator. It's completely illegal, completely fraudulent. But if the system accepts it for even 30 seconds, I press my seal into the wax. The effect is immediate. A shimmer in the air. A sensation like reality hiccuping. The impact stop. Outside, I hear voices. The wind-through instrument sound of celestial communication. They're confused. The system just told them there's a tribunal session in progress. They're required to pause until it's resolved. 1 minute, Trevor says. I don't know how long the fake tribunal will hold them. Seconds, probably. But seconds might be enough. Trevor hits a final key. Done. The ledger is encoded and distributed. Automatic releases are configured. You're scheduled to check in every 12 hours. If you miss 2 consecutive check-ins, everything goes public. Where does it go? Everywhere. Every database I could access. Physical copies sent to researchers, investigators, journalists in both mundane and mystical circles. Digital copies scattered across so many networks they'd need to shut down half the world to contain it. The shimmer in the air collapses. My fake tribunal dissolves. The temporal displacement expires. The wall explodes inward. Brick and mortar spray across the room. I throw myself behind a bank of servers. Diane dives the opposite direction. Trevor grabs the ledger and rolls under a desk. 3 enforcers step through the breach, the same ones from my shop. Their forms more defined now. Furious. Vincent Marrow, the lead enforcer says, you have made this significantly worse. I stand slowly, hands visible. I want to negotiate. You have no standing to negotiate. I have evidence, documentation, proof of corruption at every level of your hierarchy. If I die, it goes public. All of it. Every name, every transaction. The enforcer pauses. You're bluffing. Am I? Check your systems. Check the distribution networks. It's already out there, waiting. The only thing stopping it from becoming public knowledge is me staying alive and checking in regularly. The enforcers exchange glances. One of them raises a hand toward their face. Making some kind of communication gesture, they're checking. Actually checking. This is blackmail, the lead enforcer says finally. This is insurance. You want to call it that? Fine. But ending me means destroying yourselves in the process. I'm betting you'd rather negotiate. Silence, the kind that presses down on you like physical weight. Then, incredibly, the lead enforcer nods slightly. We will convey your position to the appropriate authorities. A representative will contact you within 24 hours to discuss terms. How do I know you won't just eliminate me the moment I leave here? Because doing so now would prove you right, would prove the system is exactly as corrupt as your evidence suggests. The enforcer's form flickers. We are not what you think we are, Vincent Marrow. We serve justice. But justice is not simple. It is not clean. Sometimes it requires accommodation. They turn and walk back through the hole in the wall. Just like that. Gone. I don't move. Don't breathe. Wait for the trap to spring. Nothing happens. Did that just work? Diane asks, emerging from cover. Trevor stands, brushing dust off the ledger. It worked. For now. They'll come back with lawyers instead of soldiers. This just became a negotiation instead of an execution. I sink down onto a broken pew. My hands won't stop shaking. I can't believe that actually worked. Don't celebrate yet, Trevor says. You've bought time, maybe a chance at survival, but you've also made permanent enemies. They'll be looking for ways to neutralize the threat without triggering the release. Ways to discredit you, to make the evidence meaningless. How do I stop that? You don't. You live with it. You become untouchable not because you're innocent, but because you're too dangerous to eliminate. He hands me the ledger. Welcome to your new life, Vincent. Hope it's worth it. I take the book, feel its weight, feel its, all those names, all those transactions, all that proof of systematic corruption. Was it worth it? Ask me in 24 hours. If I'm still alive, 24 hours. That's what they gave me. One day to wait for contact from someone with actual authority to negotiate. One day wondering if they'll honor the agreement or if I'll simply cease to exist between one breath and the next. I spend the night in Trevor's church. Diane insists on staying too. Neither of them trusts me to check in on time if I'm left alone. Fair assessment. The exhaustion is catching up to me. 3 days running on adrenaline and fear. My body wants to shut down, but sleep doesn't come easy. I lie on a makeshift bed of church cushions salvaged from storage, staring at the vaulted ceiling. Moonlight filters through cracks in the boarded windows, creating patterns that shift and move. Or maybe that's just my exhausted mind playing tricks. Around 3 a.m, Trevor appears beside me, silent as a ghost. I didn't even hear him approach. Can't sleep either, he asks. Every time I close my eyes, I see them. The enforcers. The way they looked at me. I sit up. Like I was already dead. Already judged. Trevor settles onto the floor beside me, back against the wall. I've been studying them for 15 years. The celestial bureaucracy. The hierarchies. The rules. He's quiet for a moment. You know what I've learned? They're not gods. They're administrators, functionaries. They have power, yes, but they're constrained by the same systems they enforce. Doesn't make them less dangerous. No, but it makes them predictable. They'll follow procedure. They'll negotiate, because that's what the system requires. He pauses. The question is what you want out of this negotiation. Survival. Is that all? I look at him. What else is there? Change, reform. You've exposed the corruption. You have leverage. You could demand more than just your life. You could demand they fix the system. The idea is almost laughable. You think they'd actually do that? I think they'd promise to. Whether they'd follow through. He shrugs. That's why you keep the failsafe. Keep the threat alive. Make them prove they're serious about reform before you stand down. That's a long game. Years. Maybe decades. Better than being erased. Trevor stands. Think about it. You didn't go through all this just to survive. You went through it to prove a point. Now you have the chance to make that point matter. He walks away, leaving me alone with thoughts I'm not sure I'm ready to face. By dawn, I've made a decision. Diane wakes to find me at Trevor's computer, typing. What are you doing? She asks, voice rough with sleep. Making a list. Demands. I glance at her. Trevor's right. I have leverage. I should use it. She reads over my shoulder. Her expression shifts from skepticism to something like approval. You're actually going to try to reform the entire afterlife bureaucracy. I'm going to try to make them acknowledge it needs reform. Small steps. The list includes full amnesty for my activities, creation of an independent oversight committee to review misclassification cases, public acknowledgement of system failures, mandatory periodic audits of all hierarchical appointments, establishment of appeals processes with actual timelines and accountability. It's ambitious, probably impossible, but if I'm going to negotiate with cosmic powers, I might as well aim high. The contact comes at exactly noon. No dramatic entrance, no flash of light. The church door simply opens and a woman walks in. Mid-40s, business suit, sensible shoes. She carries a briefcase and looks like she could be a corporate lawyer or accountant, which I suppose she is, just for a different kind of corporation. Vincent Marrow, her voice is crisp, professional. That's me. My name is Judith Calloway. I represent the Celestial Administrative Oversight Board. I'm authorized to negotiate terms for resolution of your current situation. She sets the briefcase on one of Trevor's tables and opens it. Inside, documents. Lots of them. First, let's establish the current status. You possess evidence of administrative irregularities spanning multiple hierarchical levels. You've created a distribution mechanism that would release this evidence if you're harmed or fail to maintain regular contact. Is this accurate? Yes. And you're willing to negotiate terms under which this evidence would not be released and the distribution mechanism would be dismantled? Potentially. Depends on the terms. Judith pulls out a document and slides it across the table. This is our initial offer. Full amnesty for all activities related to contract forgery and hierarchical manipulation. Guaranteed safe passage to a protected territory where you would remain under observation but unmolested. All records of your business sealed and classified. I read through it. The language is dense, but the meaning is clear. They want me quiet and contained. Alive, but powerless. No, I say, pushing it back. Her expression doesn't change. What are your counter-demands? I hand her my list. She reads it slowly, takes her time. When she finishes, she looks at me with something that might be respect. These are substantial requests, systemic changes. They would require approval at the highest levels. Then get approval. It's not that simple. The bureaucracy is vast. Change is slow. What you're asking would take years to implement, possibly centuries. Then start now. Prove you're serious about reform, and I'll prove I'm serious about keeping the evidence contained. Judith sets down the paper. You understand that even if we agree to pursue these changes, there's no guarantee they'll happen. Bureaucracies have inertia, resistance. The people who benefit from the current system will fight reform, which is why the fail-safe stays active, insurance that you at least try. She's quiet for a long moment. Then she pulls out a different document. This is a compromise. We agree to establish an independent review committee with representatives from multiple jurisdictions. We agree to audit all appointments from the past 1,000 years. We agree to create formal appeals processes with mandatory response timelines. She slides it toward me. In exchange, you agree to limit the scope of your evidence release. Names are redacted, only patterns and systemic issues are made public. This allows reform without destroying individual careers. Protecting the guilty. Protecting the possibility of cooperation. If we expose everyone, they'll all resist change to save themselves. If we give them a path to redemption, some will take it. I look at Diane and Trevor. Diane nods slowly. Trevor just watches. Expression unreadable. I want one more thing, I say. Judith raises an eyebrow. What? The people I helped. The souls I moved through the system. They don't get punished for my crimes. Their new positions are honored. They keep what they earned. They didn't earn anything. You forged their credentials. They earned the love of people who cared enough to help them. That's worth something. Judith considers this. I can't make that promise for all of them. Some of the transfers were egregious, unqualified entities in positions of power. But for the majority, the ones where the transfer was reasonable even if the method was illegal. She nods. I can argue for grandfather clauses. Let them keep their positions with the understanding that future promotions must be earned legitimately. It's not everything, but it's something. One more condition, I say. Trevor's wife. She's caught in a misclassification loop. I want her case reviewed and resolved within 30 days. Trevor's head snaps toward me. Vincent. 30 days, I repeat, looking at Judith. Non-negotiable. Judith makes a note. I'll add it to the agreement. Personal intervention in specific cases as demonstration of good faith. She produces a new document, begins writing. The language flows like she's done this 1,000 times. Maybe she has. Maybe negotiating with troublemakers is her specialty. When she finishes, she slides it across the table. This is a binding agreement, recognized by all relevant jurisdictions. If either party violates the terms, the other is released from their obligations. Your failsafe remains active until the review committee is established and begins work. Our commitment to reform remains binding regardless of your status. I read every word. Look for traps, loopholes, hidden clauses that would destroy me. The document seems clean as something this complex can be. I need time to review this thoroughly, I say. You have 24 hours. After that, the offer expires and we return to alternative methods of resolution. You mean you'll try to eliminate me again? We'll pursue enforcement through less negotiable channels. She stands. I hope you accept, Vincent. Truly, what you've uncovered is troubling. The system does need reform. But reform requires cooperation. It requires people like you willing to work within the system instead of just exposing its failures. She leaves the document on the table and walks out the same way she came in. Quietly, without ceremony. The three of us stare at the papers. Well, Diane says finally, that went better than expected. Did it? I pick up the document. We're trusting them to follow through, to actually implement changes instead of just making promises. That's why the failsafe stays active, Trevor says. You keep the leverage, keep checking in. If they don't hold up their end, you release everything. And if they do, if they actually start making changes, then you've done something extraordinary. You've forced the divine bureaucracy to acknowledge its own corruption and take steps to fix it. He smiles slightly. Not bad for a forger from Chicago. I spend the next hours going over every line of the agreement with Trevor. He knows the language better than I do. The technical terminology, the jurisdictional implications. By midnight, we're satisfied it's legitimate. No hidden traps, no poison pills, just a straightforward exchange. My silence and cooperation for reform and protection. You're really going to sign this, Diane says. It's not a question. I don't see another choice. Keep running forever. Keep waiting for them to find a way around the failsafe. At least this way, something good might come from all this. And if they betray you? Then Trevor releases everything, and I become a martyr for bureaucratic reform. Not how I planned to go out, but worse things have happened. I pull out my father's seal one last time. The bronze feels warm in my hand, heavy with history. My father spent 200 years working in this system, learning its rules, documenting its failures. This is why he left me his notes. Not so I could profit from corruption, so I could expose it. Force change. I press the seal into red wax at the bottom of the agreement. It's done. 3 days later, I receive confirmation. The independent review committee is being established. Judith sends me a list of appointees, representatives from heaven, hell, and neutral territories. People with actual authority and allegedly integrity. Trevor gets a message through his mystical channels. His wife's case is under review. Priority status. Expected resolution within the promised 30 days. And me? I'm officially classified as Administrative Consultant Special Projects. It's a non-position, a placeholder, but it comes with protections, guarantees. I can't be touched without triggering a full investigation. I'm untouchable. Not because I'm innocent, because I'm too useful alive. I keep the shop closed, don't resume business. But I don't destroy my father's notes either. I keep them, study them, start compiling a comprehensive guide to the bureaucratic afterlife, documentation of how the system really works. Trevor suggests I publish it, make it available to researchers, investigators, people trying to help souls caught in the machinery. If people understand the system, they can work within it legally, he says. No need for forgers. No need for black market contracts, just knowledge. It takes me 6 months to write. Another 6 to verify everything with Judith and the review committee. They're surprisingly cooperative. Apparently, transparency is part of the reform mandate. The book gets published under a pseudonym, a guide to post-mortem administrative navigation, dry title, dense content, but it sells. Slowly at first, then faster as word spreads. People who've lost loved ones, researchers, mystics, They all want to understand how to help souls trapped in bureaucratic limbo. The book gives them tools, legal tools, legitimate ways to file appeals, challenge classifications, request reviews. I don't make much money from it, don't need to. Judith arranged a modest stipend as part of my consulting role. Enough to live on. Enough to keep me quiet and cooperative. A year after the agreement, Trevor's wife is released from her holding loop, properly reclassified, transferred to a position that actually suits her qualifications. He sends me a message, just 2 words. Thank you. 2 years in, the review committee publishes its first audit results. Thousands of cases reviewed, hundreds of misclassifications corrected. It's not perfect. The bureaucracy is still enormous and slow. But it's progress. Real, measurable progress. I think about Rebecca Ortiz sometimes. Wonder if she knows what happened. If Teresa told her that the man who helped them ended up changing the whole system. Probably not. Some stories don't get happy endings, don't get closure. But some do. I'm sitting in a coffee shop in Logan Square when I see him. Victor Hammond, the client who triggered everything, the test that led to my exposure. He doesn't recognize me at first. Why would he? I look different now, older, tired in a way that goes beyond physical exhaustion, but I recognize him. Still wearing expensive suits, still carrying himself like someone who expects the world to bend around him. I should be angry, should hate him for what his test cost me. But looking at him now, I just feel tired. He's mortal, temporary. In a few decades, he'll die and face the system he tried to game. The system that's now being reformed specifically to prevent people like him from buying their way past judgment. There's justice in that. Poetic justice, anyway. I finish my coffee and leave before he notices me. Some confrontations aren't worth having. 5 years after the agreement, I get a letter, physical letter, delivered by mundane postal service. Inside a single page, handwritten. Dear Vincent, I hope this finds you well. My name is Teresa Ortiz. You helped my mother help me years ago. I wanted you to know that I'm aware of what you did afterward, how you exposed the corruption, how you forced reform. Because of you, I now work in the appeals office. I help souls like I was, forgotten, misclassified, trapped in loops. Every day I use the processes your reforms created to help people who would have been abandoned forever. You probably don't remember me. You helped so many people, but I remember you. And I want you to know that what you built, even if you built it on broken rules, mattered. Thank you, Teresa. I read the letter 3 times, then fold it carefully and put it in my desk drawer. It doesn't absolve me, doesn't make the questionable ethics of my business suddenly righteous. I still profited from grief, still manipulated sacred systems for personal gain. But maybe Trevor was right. Maybe I didn't go through all this just to survive. Maybe I went through it to prove a point, that the system was broken, that even divine bureaucracy could be corrupted, that justice without accountability isn't justice at all, and maybe, just maybe, I helped fix it. Not completely, not perfectly. The bureaucracy is still enormous, still slow, still capable of crushing individuals who challenge it. But it's better now than it was, more accountable, more transparent, more willing to admit its failures and correct them. That's something. The failsafe is still active. Will be for the rest of my natural life. Every 12 hours I check in, confirm I'm alive and unmolested. The data stays contained. The evidence stays hidden. But the threat remains. A permanent reminder to the celestial hierarchy that corruption has consequences, that someone is watching, that the system must continue to improve or face exposure. I'm not a hero. Never wanted to be. Just a forger who got caught and decided that going down quietly wasn't an option. But if forcing reform was the price of survival, I'll take it. Outside my apartment window, the city continues its daily rhythm. People living, dying, moving through their temporary existence completely unaware of the vast bureaucracy that awaits them. Most of them won't need my book, won't need to understand the system. They'll live decent lives, die peacefully, and go somewhere appropriate. But for the ones who fall through the cracks, for the ones who get misclassified, forgotten, trapped, the system is better now. Not perfect, but better. And every soul that gets helped because of the reforms I forced, that's one more reason it was worth it. I close the drawer with Teresa's letter. Pull out my father's seal. The bronze is cool now. The engraving's worn smooth by years of use. He spent 200 years documenting the system's failures, hoping someone would eventually use that knowledge to force change. I don't know if this is what he imagined. A son who became a criminal, got caught, and leveraged his crimes into reform. But I think he'd understand. Sometimes the only way to fix a broken system is to break it a little more, to expose the cracks, force the light in, make the corruption so obvious that even the corrupt can't ignore it. I set the seal on my desk. Leave it there, a reminder of where I came from, what I built, what I lost, and what I gained in the process. The shop is gone. The business is over. The forger has retired. But the work continues. The reform proceeds. The system improves. One case at a time, one corrected classification, one soul freed from bureaucratic limbo. It's slow, frustratingly slow, but it's real. And in the end, that's all that matters. I survived. The system changed. People are helped. Not a bad legacy for a forger from Chicago, not bad at all.